My name is Matthew Townsend, and last year I designed and built a garage apartment in my backyard. I'm trying to build the entire standalone garage in 100 days for under $100,000.
I brought a sledgehammer. It's in the car if you need it.
We might need it. I rented a mini-excavator with a hydraulic thumb. The first rental company I called told me that I would have to take a 4-hour class that cost $180, where they would evaluate my skills and determine if I was safe. The next company told me I just had to pay them. So, which company do you think I ended up renting with?
How'd we do?
It took about 4 hours to get it on the ground and another full day to pick it up by hand and load it into the dumpsters. All told, doing the demolition myself probably saved about $1,000 just directly on the demo costs, but it also enabled me to do jobs I wouldn't have done before, like the sewer connection and some of those things that easily cost me another $1,000 if I'd had to hire a plumber. I also got to do some tractoring, which is super fun. If you haven't ever tried it, highly recommend. When tearing out a slab, you can remove it and ship it to landfills, but landfills charge by volume and weight, and concrete is very heavy. So you'll do better to find a company that can tear out the slab and truck the concrete to a concrete crusher. Old slabs like this can be crushed and recycled and don't have to go to the landfill. I ended up hiring this awesome guy named Miguel, who was Leonardo da Vinci on a skid steer. He was an artist. He showed up with this giant dump truck towing his big old skid steer and ended up making 2 trips to the concrete recycler. By recycling the concrete, we diverted at least 10 tons of material away from the landfill and saved literally thousands of dollars in landfill fees. Miguel used the mini-excavator to arrange the slab pieces, and then he jumped into the skid steer, loaded up the dump truck, drove the dump truck down to the concrete recycler, and while he was here, he also did the site work to prep for the driveway and removed the front sidewalk in front of my house, which was completely destroyed. If you can have one person do multiple jobs at the same time, it's always going to be cheaper than piecemealing the project together a little task at a time. In the end, it took 2 dumpsters to haul away the original building, and the bids I got for demolition were between $4,500 and $5,500. But I was able to get it done myself for just a hair under $4,000. And I know that doesn't sound like a great deal because it was, admittedly, a huge pain in the neck, but having the mini excavator on site saved me thousands of dollars in plumbing costs because I was able to dig my own trench and connect the sewer line underneath the slab and ultimately not have to use a plumber for that. Before we get too far, we need to talk about permitting. And permitting and dealing with the city can be super stressful. So let's go on a little field trip. This other house right behind my house started tearing down their existing shed. I feel like this is kind of a spoiler alert, but you can see the garage did get done. We're gonna go check out this other project here on the same street as me, but they did not get permits. Before you demolish anything or start to build anything, you need to get your project permitted. City planners and city inspectors are just like you. And if you're nice to them, they're gonna probably be nice to you, but if you're a jerk to them, they're definitely gonna be a jerk to you as well. Let's see how their project is going. Our first inspector was great. Unfortunately, he retired about a month into construction, and after that, I had 10 different inspectors who all wanted to see something different, and you never quite knew what you were gonna get when you called in for an inspection. So That wasn't ideal. It can be frustrating when they tell you something you don't want to hear, but life is a little bit frustrating. So calm down and don't take it personally. And here we are. Their construction has been sitting here for months, doing nothing. So talk to your city, get your permits, do it the right way, because there's a lot more upside than there is downside. As an indicator of how critical this one part of the building project is, realize that the state of Texas let me do literally everything else on this design. The only thing that they made me hire somebody to design was the foundation. Everything else I could do on my own. Most of the work with concrete is in the preparation. These 1-inch conduits are for future EV chargers. They terminate into the electrical box, and I didn't own an EV at the time, but eventually we all will, so adapt or die. Whew. There it is. I found these awesome antique solid bricks that were salvaged from a bank driveway here in Fort Worth. I bought them on Craigslist. I drove out to pick them up, and it took 4 trips to move the whole stack, and the suspension in my van was never quite the same. So on this walkway, it was really interesting how they ended up pouring that concrete. So they started by pouring the outside first. They gave it a few hours to kind of cure, and then they pulled the inside of the forms and laid the inside where the bricks sat. The next weekend, my parents came over and we laid the pavers inside the frame, and the end result was really awesome. We ended up needing 3 trucks, or about 28 cubic yards of concrete just for the slab and our new front walkway. In addition to the rebar, I had them mix in about 50 pounds of fiberglass reinforcement. And the only thing I would have liked to do differently is I would have made sure they used a power trowel on the concrete slab. So our concrete was smoothed out by hand, and to be honest, it's pretty rough. This poor guy was out there smoothing with a headlamp after it got dark, and it definitely shows. It's rough, but at the end of the day, it's a garage. All told, the concrete turned out really well. In the end, I ended up paying $5 a square for the flat work, aka the driveway and the front sidewalk, and then $9 for the slab. I also purchased foundation tie straps and the fiberglass, and paid for the site work on the driveway. The total cost came to $15,414.83, which is about 15% of our entire budget. And it feels like a lot, but I just don't know where I could have shaved any of that cost down. The big thing with construction is you have to remember that everything is connected. To get your build right, you have to think through all those systems ahead of time, and even systems you might want to add in the future, like EV chargers. Take your time while designing, because if you don't think through how everything is going to get connected and interact with each other in the design phase, you're going to find yourself effectively renovating the construction project while you're in the middle of a new build. As always, thanks for following along with this build, and if you haven't already, give me a thumbs up below and be sure to subscribe. As always, I would love to see what you're building, so leave a comment below and feel free to ask me any questions in the comments. Next time, we are framing, and there is a lot to see, so be sure to subscribe. I am Matthew Townsend, and I'll see you soon. Whew. It's hot in here.